when I had my channel back in the day, like that was what I was going to do. And I pivoted to other things because it wasn't working out. And a lot of that was on me. But just as an example of like the algorithm stuff, and how unpredictable and how little they care. Long story short, I was like 70% to monetization on my channel at the time. And they made a change overnight. Like literally woke up the next day and went to check it. And because of the change they made, I was at 10%.
Bro, you don't own your business. Yeah, you don't own your business.
I was like, well, that's kind of, and again, it's one of those things like, well, what do you, like, okay. You know what I mean? There's nothing I can't call anybody. There's nothing to do about it. There's nothing. It's like, all right, well, I guess I just lost 60% of my progress.
Dude, and we can talk about this later, but I've looked at so many different businesses, but have had many different businesses. And at the end of the day, when you get to a point where you realize, do I own this business or do I not? By going through like YouTube or like, Instagram or whatever, and the algorithms or whatnot are going to throw you off. Like at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I'm building this whole thing on someone else's platform who has the key to my business.
1,000%.
I'm out.
Dude, I'll tell
That's why you can't be on one platform, baby.
Yep.
I talked about this. Like, one thing I've dealt with is, what do they call it? Shadow banning.
Yeah.
You know what that is? Mm-mm. It's where, so it's crazy. Look it up. But it's basically where they're like,
I've been recording for a while, so you'll pull them mics tight for me.
They'll ban you, but not ban you on social media.
No notification.
Like Instagram example, like my personal page. And I think a lot of it has to do with like the stuff I'm into. Like I said, like the pagan group and all that, like pushing masculinity and strength and like positive shit, which is weird. And, obviously society looks at stuff like that from just the outside and they make assumptions. And I think especially on these platforms, they do too. And it's just been crazy because I'll gain like 20 followers one day. The next day, I'll be minus 25 followers. And then I'll gain 25 followers the next day. I'll be minus 20 the following day. Yep. And it's just like, nobody's going on. People on Instagram like typically don't unfollow pages. It's very rare. And so I doubt like hundreds of people or whatever, thousands even have just been like, unfollow this dickhead. Yeah. Like, because I'm not posting shit that's like, fuck you and like negative, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just crazy to me. But and so it's been something I've dealt with for quite some time.
One of my other clients is a bodybuilding female, and she gets her posts striked all the time for nudity. Yeah. On Instagram. It's like, I'm sorry, what? But there's no consistency, and again, there's nothing you can do about it. Really.
Well, don't promote traditionalism and masculinity and stuff, because that'll definitely get you flagged. They're like, what the hell? This is definitely not what we want in our culture today.
Gosh, isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame?
It's crazy.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right, ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
God. Stretch.
I'm waiting all day for this.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Stretch right there. I know. All right. You good, Logan?
I'm good to go. Cool. Pull that in front of your face for me a little bit more.
How's that?
That's perfect.
All right. What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit podcast. As always, we have a man, Logan Hyder of Cinema 83 LLC in the house, doing all the buttons and producing and all that stuff that matters and makes this roll.
I don't know where I am. I haven't slept since yesterday morning, but we're here.
Hey, you're here. You're here.
But much more importantly,
we bring on our special guest today, Mr. Leigh Klemmer. The crowd goes wild, man. They're losing their shit right now. Man. Y'all can't see it, but there's like thousands of people over there.
Yeah, and then the guests are always so surprised when all the walls fall down and there's like a crowd around us.
Hell yeah,
dude! If I get that sound, like every time I walk into my house, it just triggers. And
do you like that one, or you like this one better?
That's what it was.
That's the one.
Everybody does.
God, that's my favorite one.
Everybody does.
Yeah, that's when I wake up. But yeah, the crowd one, if that came off, that went off. You're like, I'm home, motherfucker.
I just hit that button accidentally one day, and I was like, wait, what are these? They make all different kind of sounds. Actually, well, I turned it down now, but I accidentally did this one right before I did your class.
Well, Leigh, now that we've shown you all of our sounds, what's funny is I think we've done this to every guest. We're like, listen to what we can do. We're like such
little kids. We're like, look at our buttons.
But welcome, Leigh. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thanks to be here.
Hell yeah. So Leigh was introduced to me via social media by our friend Gage Spees. And Gage is episode posted, well, today, but yours is coming out later. What's today's date? August 23rd, 4th.
Just a few weeks ago at this point by the time they see this.
So his was launched. Gage was on August 23rd. And Gage shot me your info. He was like, dude, this guy would be great for your show.
Yeah.
And obviously Alex Ballou connected us with Gage. They were both stellar guests. So I'm like, well, I can take Gage's word and we'll just make this a thing. You'll probably tell me somebody that would be good for it. And
by
we'll
the way,
just keep
shout
going.
out Dylan.
It's like no pressure.
Dylan's the one that pointed us at Alex.
Dylan, yeah. So it's kind of cool how like there's been this domino effect with it, and it's all been knockouts. So you got some big shoes to fill.
That's what I hear. And yeah, Gage is a solid dude.
How do you know him?
So I met Gage, man, I feel like 2 or 3 days after he moved to Nashville. So his girlfriend at the time was a mutual connection of mine from when I was doing music. I met her when I was touring through Nashville. And so, yeah, she's one of my really good friends. And so he's like, hey, there's this guy coming in town. And so let's connect. And so we just kind of hit it off really quickly. And one thing I love about Gage, and you already know this because you've already had a conversation with him, but he'll put everything on the table. The dude is like, I'm an open book. Whatever you want to know, I'll show you.
That's what we want to know. Yeah, that's what this is all about too. That's what we need the guests to do.
So I've always had a massive respect for Gage, but seeing where he's come over the last, like, I don't know, I've known him for maybe 7 years or so. I'm like, bro, it's just going places.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it is. The growth, where he's going, his vision, like everything. He's just a solid dude. So you haven't.
And he just rolls with it.
Yep.
You know, that's the thing. Like he talked about it. He didn't plan on being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
He's going to make hats, you know? And like, as soon as he showed up, me and him just started talking.
Yep.
And it was just like, boom, like we clicked really well. He's a really cool person to talk to.
Yep.
And, you know, shout out to him. He's making Lydia a custom hat for our wedding.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh,
he was
that's
just
cool.
like, dude, I want to gift that to you guys for the wedding. And I was like, bro, that's fucking dope.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford your hat right now.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I mean, he's just a really good person. So I'm glad to know him. And I'm glad he introduced us because we've had some good conversation. And, you know, prior to the podcast, we talked about me the whole time. You were trying to get to know who I was.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask you shit because I was like, I want to save it because you're going to say something really cool we might forget. So here you are, man. Thank you, Gage, for getting him on.
Yep.
So, Leigh, what is it that just briefly, and then we're going to take it back. So what we're going to do is I want to know what you do, and then we're going to go back as far as you want to go, kind of talk about your life, you know, let people know who you are. We want the guests to really get to know the individual, and then we'll go from there and dive into whatever. So, yeah, what do you do?
So I own a web consulting business called Lelentless, and what we do is essentially we get people more clients from their website, right? So majority of people don't build, and this isn't a plug, it's just what I do. So we build websites that majority of businesses don't have a structure of actually how to acquire businesses. And so I come in and be like, hey, let me address the foundation of your website, and then let's build it through all these different methods and whatnot.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I do. That's my vocation. My why is more or less what we were talking earlier is about family, kids, wife. What are we building? What is our legacy? And what does that actually look like for us?
Yes.
So to answer the question, 2-part, I would say the latter is what I care most about.
Of course.
But the first is what takes up the most time.
I love that. And, you know, it's cool what, it's crazy because, you know, we'll get into this, but, you know, said you were in music and you were touring. So to go from touring to this, it's definitely a drastic change.
Bro.
But yeah, so I want to get into that. Really cool what you do. How long have you been doing this?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Dang. So you built it up quite a bit, I'd say. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can go as far as back as we want to, but I quit college. I went for a semester and then dropped out to do music.
So I want to we're going to get to that.
Further back.
So
way further back.
Because I want to hear this.
Yep.
And not to interrupt you, but
let's go.
Take us further back and then we'll get to this. So take us back, you know, maybe to your childhood. Tell us like about you and like where you're from and we'll bridge.
Yeah, let's go. Okay. So, so I was born in a town called Port Huron, Michigan, which is just about 45 minutes north of Detroit.
The great north.
Right? Yep. I lived 3 houses from the Lake Huron, and my childhood was aquatic. I was on the water, whether that's in the snow, if it's in the summer, on there. So I'm on glaciers. I'm on, you know, I just love the water.
What do you think about this heat?
Oh, hey, dude, I just literally got back to Nashville. Yeah, when we were talking, I was in Michigan. So I try to get out of the summers because I cannot stand this heat.
Dude, I can't stand it.
Oh, okay.
That's why I enjoy the ice baths almost.
Man, I've been here for 12 years, I think at this point, 12 or 13 years. And it's the first time in my life that I have been landlocked, not by a large body of water. And I've lived all over the U.S. It's tough. And I'm surprised that I've been here this long.
We got a couple lakes around.
Yeah. If you want to call it a lake.
Yeah.
That's more like a puddle.
I guess being where you're from, that's probably an insult to lakes.
So you had this aquatic lifestyle up in the cold.
Yep. So I where I'm from is just outside of Detroit, and Detroit is very much the auto industry. It always has been, and it still is. And so where I grew up, it's very blue collar. Everyone works a factory job. Either you work in medical or you work a factory job. It's kind of what you do. And there's a very, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like Buffalo, because anybody from Buffalo might listen to this and be like, it's not like Buffalo. But the whole idea is very the same. There's a very defined line between wealth and middle to low class, or whatever you want. Not low class, but lack of better words, just people that aren't making money, like the poverty level and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's actually increased a lot since I've moved there, or moved away. Nonetheless, so my dad, great family, grew up in an amazing home. My parents married, and my mom passed last year. So up until then, they were married almost, they were together for 50 years or whatnot.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you're raised in a house like that. You see the ups and the downs, right? And that just like translates to the rest of your life. Commitment, no matter what. And so, my dad he started out as a chemist and super smart guy, and then went into became a sales guy he knew the product, and then therefore he could sell it. Very personable. My mom, she was a stay-at-home mom for the majority of the time. She worked 2 days a week in respiratory therapy, so she was medical. And then, that was kind of their life. And I did the school thing.
That's the American dream.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah.
Like mom gets to stay at home, work as she wants to. Dad's got a good job. Family's all together. Like, that's beautiful. Yeah.
But it comes at a cost, right? And I don't know. I don't want to pretend like I know your life, but with my parents, because they had her stay at home, they took a lot of.
I'm so sorry.
Is that better? Sorry. So
if you can just kind of bring it
in front of you like this,
you're moving fine. It's just, you're doing great.
Okay. So, they're having a parent at home you're going to take a hit financially. And we did.
Yeah.
And so I lived in a very, very small home that, in the winters, so if you've ever been in Michigan in the winter, it's freezing. We had an old house that had single pane windows, and so you could not see out of the windows in the summer or the winter, because my dad would put plastic sheeting over it to help insulate the house. The house was heated by a wood stove, and so my dad would get a whole truckload of wood brought in the beginning of the summer, and then he would just cut it, and then that's how we just couldn't afford it, and so we lived at Goodwill. I mean, when I say poverty was kind of what I was raised in, it's pretty accurate. We didn't have a whole lot of money, which I didn't know that at the time. As a kid, you don't know.
You're just living life.
Yeah, your parents love you. You've got food on the table. You're good, and you can play. Your imagination kind of like oversees everything. So
Isn't that crazy?
It is, man.
That's a great way to put that.
What a great gift.
It really is.
Right? And so then as you grow up, you actually, now I would never say, hey, let's make all of our kids and all of our families like just live on poverty level. But the gift of that is you do understand the value of a dollar. You understand, you've seen it in front of you. Like, how do you stretch a dollar to go as far as you can?
Yeah.
And especially when I'm looking at 20 years later in the entrepreneur sector, you're like, I know how to make a dollar stretch, and I know how to make a little bit go a long way.
Yeah.
So the reason why I bring that up is it did apply later in my life. That was a huge lesson for me. So I went to school, smart kid.
With that, not to interrupt, but like with that, but having that upbringing, you didn't realize. And so say you didn't have money or something happened and you didn't have it, you understand it was actually valuable anyways.
Yep.
I talked about how I lost a bunch of money from, that last situation. And then here I am, like business owner, like putting all my money into it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't need all that. that new house and all the shit. Like I've got everything I need. I've got my business. I've got my family. And like,
because there's a huge emotional toll like that those situations bring. And it's like if you've never been in that situation that hits you, that's a whole nother thing you got to deal with on top of the fact that you're dealing with that situation. You know?
Because some people you take away that dollar,
Yep.
and they like lose their shit.
Yep.
I mean, people kill themselves over it, you know, and it's like that's not the most important thing in the world, but it's good to acquire if you can.
Yep.
On top of having value for all the other stuff. So, anyways,
it doesn't. So my mentor told me this the other day. He was like, "Money doesn't solve your problems. It just gives you more options," and it's so true. That's all it is.
Yep.
Right. So, So going back to childhood, taking a step back, I was born with a hole in my heart. Right. So, very serious at the time. I did open heart surgery as a 6-month-old. I fixed that hole, and then when I was 6 years old, there was called a corrotation of the aorta. So essentially one of my main arteries going to my heart was pinching the blood. So they had to go in there and take that out. So they went through the back. So as a kid up till 6, I was in and out of the hospital all the time. And it put so much stress on my family. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And they were like, are we going to lose this kid? Are we not going to lose this kid? It was just, a lot of stress. So I look at my parents, I'm like, you guys killed it. You actually went through all of that and still stayed together. It's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that later on, how that plays into my life.
Of course,
right. So, anyway, go through the rest of my high school career school career, and when I hit 8th grade, my brother gets a brain tumor in the center of his head, right, and it's very, very rare. It's very hard to know. It was cutting edge. No one knows how to do it. So they had this like new way of doing things out in Boston. And so my mom and my brother flew out there. They were there for the summer. My dad, like your dad, was traveling all the time. So it was like he was a salesman, he was traveling. It was an area of my life where I had to kind of grow up really quick.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they're out there. We don't know what's going to happen with my brother. My dad's traveling. While they were all trying to make things happen, it was a massive growing experience for me.
Of course.
And so anyway, at the point, he gets that taken care of. He's cancer free at this point, and my parents survive yet another like blow to their marriage. I'm like, are we going to lose a kid or not? So anyway, I go into high school.
Can I ask you just real quick with your medical situation you were talking about whenever you were younger, and with your brother, how were those situations remedied? Like with your heart and
Yeah, good question. So so they went in and they patched things up on the front and the back for me, and then
like a graft.
Yeah,
I got a graft down my aorta. So.
Oh, do you? Okay, so you.
That's from my wreck. Yeah, I had an aneurysm. So.
All right. Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Oh, did you not tell them the injury list? We'll have to do that.
I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah. So then, so I kind of go in and get stress tests and everything just to make sure that my heart is good. So, so far so good.
Awesome.
The interesting thing is the one on my back, the corrotation. There's a plastic tubing that they put in as a 6-year-old. I've grown a lot since I was 6. And so that thing is actually could possibly create the same problem again as I get older. So TBD, we'll find out.
Yeah.
TBD continued. My brother, they went through his jaw. They took his top teeth off and went straight up into his head and took it all out. Yeah.
That's
gnarly.
crazy. I'm just picturing this.
I'm trying not to. It's
removing
hard not to though.
Yeah, how the hell?
Right?
So it was in the front of his head?
Yeah. Yep. Right back in here. So they went up and took it out, and then
So how many siblings did you have? And
just one. I have an older brother.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And how old was he when all this was going on?
So he would have been 18.
Damn.
Yep. He'd been 18.
Damn.
And then they did this like laser proton beam type thing where they like just hit it from the top. So it was all like a new thing back when he was doing it. I mean, that was 20 some years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So like obviously medical has advanced since then, but it was very much experimental when they were doing it. I'm like, well, we don't really have a choice here.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Let's
Might
do
as
it.
well take the shot.
Yeah. So
Well, good on you two fucking warriors making it through that too. I mean, your parents, but you guys too, yeah?
Yeah, hell
What's up,
yeah.
dude?
Yeah, hell yeah. Good shit.
So then high school, I was the guy. Get a good resume in high school so you can get a good scholarship to college. We didn't come from money, and I was like, I'm footing the bill for this. I'm going to be working my way through college, so I'm going to get as many different scholarships as I can. And so I was president of student council. I was multiple varsity sport guy. I was in national honors. I mean, you name it, I was on it. Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, you name it, just all in. And then
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't see that often. I think, going through high school, you see people maybe less privileged or whatever that just like, I'm not saying everybody, but I noticed a lot of people I knew that just didn't give a shit.
Yep.
Because of their circumstances.
Yeah.
But you took that and you're like, I've got to start now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. So ended my high school career great. And honestly, it would look really, really good on resumes. And I realized I didn't want to go to school. In fact, I wanted to do music. And I didn't, well, actually, time out. I wanted to go into the military. That's what I wanted to do. And so I was like, I'm not doing scholarships. I'm going to the Marines. It was right after 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened when I was a senior in high school. So everyone's like, let's go.
You got to tell me about that. You got to tell me about that one.
Yeah.
You got to tell me about that. So I was in kindergarten. So
I was in middle school at the time.
Yo, tell me I'm old without telling me I'm old, bro.
But in all seriousness, I even have like vague memories of that day. And I was freaking 6 because it just like, it's like seared into my brain. Like I remember watching, I remember where I was when I got picked up. Like, so from a guy who was that age and then the age of being able to join the, I would love to, if you would like to.
2 things, 2 historical moments really shaped the way I started making decisions. 1, 9/11, 2, the fall of Enron. Okay. You guys are familiar with Enron?
I remember that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
My parents lost so much of their retirement at Enron, and
Really?
I learned that in high school, and I realized I can't trust the long game on certain things, right? So when it comes to retirement, like my parents were saving everything for retirement. They did great in retirement, for the record. They did make great choices, but they lost so much money, and I realized, I'm like, man, if I put everything for the end of the journey, then I will enjoy nothing now, and that is not secured. So
Right there with you.
You talk about the retirement example all the time about how people are always like the
They
money
stress that.
Yeah.
But hey, let's have fun later. But it's like, dude, I almost didn't make it to 29.
Yep.
Like that retirement's not promised to you.
And that's kind of a crazy thought because
the world can have an effect or your life can
Yeah.
change drastically. So
Yep.
So yeah.
So
So Enron and 9/11.
Yeah, so I learned about Enron, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to look at the entire aspect of moving forward with my life differently. And then, so 9/11, I was a senior in high school, and like I was telling you, I was the president of the student council, right? So it was in my second period of the day that the planes hit, and so I was like, what is going on? I ran into my next door neighbor, Ben, It's one of my best friends. We've gone through so much life together. And I ran into him in the hall and I was like, dude, what's going on? I don't know. So I just was like, deuces I'm in the rest of my classes. I went to my office in the school and I just watched the whole thing go down. And I remember I was a huge fan of POD, the band. POD.
yeah, I was a fan of them back in the day.
They came out with satellites on that day.
We are.
Yeah. So 9/11 happened, the Trade Center goes down and Satellites came out, that album. So anyway, yeah, it was ground shaking. For me, it kind of awoken this whole, like, we can talk about this later, but your whole push for masculinity and like, dude, some of that stuff is just baked in. Right?
Oh, so
like,
you felt like they fucked with your shit, your house. They came into your house. Like you just felt like that natural urge to like do something about it.
Kind of. It was more or less the whole, like, it has happened 3 times in my life. Happened when 9/11 happened, where like this thing of this protection aspect comes out. We're like, I need to protect. Now, not necessarily like, hey, you came into our house, now I'm going to come into yours type of thing. There was an anger there, but I don't think I had the maturity to really understand really what it was. But it was this innate protection thing that got activated.
Okay.
Second time was when I got married with my wife. That switched, and then, dude, you want to talk about a massive dose? Have a daughter.
I talk about this a lot.
Yeah. But it's baked in. Like you can't create that. It just shifts.
Yeah.
There are a couple like Kairos moments in life where things just shift and something changes about you forever.
This episode is brought to you by Relentless Pursuit. Check us out at relentlesspursuitlifestyle.com. Check us out on social media at relentless_pursuit and relentlesspursuit_HQ. You can on the website you can find our apparel, training, link to the podcast, all different kinds of stuff. So I got a little twisted around right there. But also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/The Relentless Pursuit Podcast. So on there, it's a subscription-based thing. So we got 2 membership options, and we're going to be doing exclusive apparel. We do Saturday Cup of Joe with Joe. So I do Q&A and eat donuts from Project Donuts. And we do a couple more episodes for you guys if you want some more content. So definitely check it out. There's a lot of value there. And still check out our fundraiser that we're doing for JT and his son Garner. That's still going on. Check out the GoFundMe link in the bio on this or in the description on this podcast and show some love. Thank you.
I would say also in that, and this sounds so small, but it's a big deal for me. So because of my medical history, there was a lot of things I could not do. Couldn't lift weights, couldn't play contact sports, all that stuff, because there was a real fear of, hey, we could kill this kid.
I was going to ask you about that earlier when you said you were when you did everything, because it sounded like you mentioned sports in there.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you ever, like, if they told you had limitations with your heart.
100%. And so what happened is I played flag football, I think, in 7th grade and got hit by some dude and like busted open all the stuff. So I got it kind of fit up. But I was terrified of playing football. Loved it, was good at it, decently. I say that very.
I was a superstar.
That was amazing. No, it wasn't. I just, there's some things I could do well and there's some things I couldn't do. Obviously I didn't go play sports professionally or even in college, but nonetheless, I was terrified of getting hit, terrified of playing the sport. And then also had this like, hey, if the doctors say you can't do it. And so when I was in 10th grade, or I was a junior, and I was like, look, if I don't do this like to the fullest extent, I can never go back and do it. So I was like, screw it, let's go. I'm going to do it. And so, and it was terrifying. And I did it for 11th grade and 12th grade. I was, I was a safety. I was a strong safety.
Yeah.
You know, a strong safety. You were afraid to get.
I know. Well, I played offense back in the day. That's when I was like, I was like, put me on defense. I want to start hitting guys. But
It's like a totally different mentality, though, for real.
it is. Yeah. But the reason why I bring that up is because that was the first time in my life where I realized I'm like, hey, I can do anything I want to, and I can overcome a massive fear, or someone says you can't do something, and that kind of set the course for my life of like, hey, I can do anything I want to.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so I did that through high school, and I was like, you know what? 9/11 happened. I'm going to join the Marines. I really want to do this. I think it'd be really good. And so I didn't, as I was telling you earlier, I was getting my whole high school career set up so that I could succeed with, looking good on resumes and
scholarships all that. Yeah.
So like, I didn't do anything. I was like, I'm doing Marines. That's what I'm doing. Dude, I went to the recruiter's office. I passed all the tests, whatever. It came to, and I did the physical test. It came to the medical stuff, and they're like, whoa, dude, what's all this about? Can't take you. So I'm like, this was my plan. This was my goal. Like, I don't know what else I can do. And so that summer, I was playing music, just fun. I play I'm a drummer and whatever. And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks that summer. The summer after my senior year, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. All in. That's what I want to do. I'm going to do music, and I'm going to get the hell out of this place. At that point, I was like, this town is very suppressing. It never felt right to me. This wasn't like my
wasn't
place.
home.
Wasn't home, right? And so that was my ticket out. And so I put everything I had into it. I mean, everything. It was all or nothing. And found a couple guys. We did like, let's do it. At that point, we did college and a local college. And about a semester in, I was like, look, let's dip. Let's go on tour. Let's make this thing happen.
Yeah.
Right.
What kind of music?
Metal.
Metal. Nice.
Yep. It was like metal and like screamo-core and all that fun stuff. So, mad at your father syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, mad at your father syndrome.
Hey, all I listen to is metal.
That's what I'm going to start saying.
I love
that. I love that. It's kind of interesting though, like musician, and happen to be metal.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what are the chances of that?
So it was, it was the time when like Thrice was coming out with Artist in the Ambulance and like Finch, and like some of these guys were just really introducing screaming in a rock way and whatever. So I was like, let's go, let's do it. So anyway, I started saving up all our money, trying to buy a van and trailer to get the hell out of there. And the band broke up, and I was like, damn it. So I was like, I'm not done with this. So I packed my drums into a small little car, like Grand Am, I think, or whatever, and two-seater car or two-car door car. and just drove south. Like just hitting up, just driving. I was living in my car. I told my mom I'll come back for Christmas. And I just started driving to different towns looking for a band to play in. And
What'd your parents think about all this?
Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing here? I mean, they believed in my work ethic. And I think that was the difference of it. Like, you'll figure it out. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot. Right?
That's cool.
So I just went down, I landed in Charlotte, and then I was there for a little bit. And then I got a call from a band that was out in San Diego that was looking for a drummer. And I was like, dude, I'm in. So I drove my drums back to Michigan and then flew out to San Diego, tried out for this band, and they were super talented. They had a lot of interest in different labels and whatnot. And then it just didn't, the hang wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm maybe stuck in the van with somebody for the vast majority of the year.
You learn if you like them or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that wasn't there. I'm like, I'm not doing this. But the opportunity was there in San Diego. So I came back home and I was like, I need to sell all my stuff. I need to buy a truck, and I'm moving to San Diego. So I worked where I come from, blue collar factory jobs. It's the only thing available. And so I worked a factory job. You know those floatable noodles you throw in the pool?
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Nice.
Yeah, I made those things. And so I did that for 3 months, worked double shifts, saved every single dollar I could, and then sold everything I owned.
Did you hesitate or question any of this, or you said, okay, I'm going all out?
All in.
Sweet.
Yep.
So what was other than, I guess, just other musicians were there when you were talking about like you felt so pulled to San Diego, did you have like something specifically that was awaiting you there or anything like that?
Great question. No. It was just the scene was happening. Like the music that I was going after, and there were doers that were like, hey, we can do this. Right?
Yeah.
It's just a great environment.
Yeah. And where I come from, no one was doing anything. No one was getting out.
That's the other, the other thing too. Yeah.
And this was my ticket. I'm not going to college. I don't have anything here. And so, yeah, I realized when I was taking that college semester that I bought a book, started teaching myself I went for graphic design, right? And I bought a book and started teaching myself how to do graphic design and realized I could do this myself. Like this guy that's teaching me doesn't know half the things in this book. I can just do it myself. Why am I paying for this stuff?
Yeah.
So I was like, peace, I'm going on doing music, and I'm going to teach myself how to do this on the backside so that I have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, got the money, sold everything I had, anything I couldn't sell back in Michigan, I burned it. Had a massive bonfire down at the beach, had all my friends come over, I'm like burning my bed, I'm burning, just burning the ship.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So the only
Literally, burn the boats, baby. There you go.
Yeah. The only thing I owned to my name was a drum set, a pillow, and like two bins, like a bin of clothes and a bin of like CDs and whatnot. And all I could own, or all I could fit was putting in a small S10 in the back trunk of an S10.
Yeah.
Not much, right? Burned everything else. And so, yeah. And the last thing I needed was a camper shell, like a shell for the back of the truck.
Of course.
So what I did is I threw my sleeping bag in the back of my truck and just drove all around the state of Michigan looking for someone to sell it on the side. This is way before Craigslist was around, or like any way to actually buy anything online. You had to find it on the side of a street.
Dude, sometimes you find that, like if you're out in the middle of nowhere, like going hunting and stuff, I've seen those out.
That's what I was doing. Yeah. It took me 3 days. 3 days to find one of those things. And so I drove it back to my house, threw everything in it, and was like, peace out, I'm going to San Diego. And you make a move like that, it's the idea of coming back home is like the worst thing in the world. Like, I will not fail.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Won't fail. Like I'm all into this thing. Like I literally have nothing else to go back to.
Because now everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it took me, I remember calling my mom in a weeping mess. Oh my God, I can't find a job. Like I didn't know anybody out there. Like I didn't know a single soul in San Diego.
How long was this in?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks in.
I love it. I love it.
So I found this guy who lived in a house full of 8 other dudes, right? And they're like, yeah, we got this room. I'm like, okay, cool. I just need a place to land. And so I got there, and those dudes ended up being some of my best friends. In fact, one of them was in my wedding. One of them, I was in their wedding. I'm like, these guys were just, what a gift. What a blessing to like land somewhere solid. So anyway, I ended up taking a military construction job up in Wire Mountain in Oceanside, right? And I was building military housing, and that floated me. And at the time, I was playing music. I was trying to find a band, whatever, did the whole thing, and bought my first $3,000 computer to like do graphic design. That was a huge moment for me. I was like, I can actually pay for this? Like, cool. So I did that, and then I started like building a small business, like trying to solicit my services to bands that I knew or was meeting or like touring with. And that's kind of the foundation of how I started a business. And then I started, there was a nonprofit out there called Invisible Children. It was massive. Coney 2012 was like a viral video and whatever. I got in the very beginning. They needed someone to do band relations. And essentially I was touring with bands that supported the nonprofit. It put me on tours with like Fall Out Boy and All Time Low, like massive.
What did the nonprofit do?
So there was a war out in Uganda, and there still is, where this guy, Joseph Kony, was taking children and making them to child soldiers.
I do now that rings a bell.
Yep. And
Joseph Kony.
Yep. And so the whole premise of it was to end the war, end child soldiering, and then take out Joseph Kony. And essentially, there's the LRA, it's a whole army, and so anyway.
So the nonprofit's explicit goal is to take out Joseph Kony?
Well, I would say they're not going to try to neutralize him or anything like that.
I was just thinking, like, what a nonprofit.
He needs to die.
Like most nonprofits you go to, and they're like, meet Jimmy, and then this one they're like, so we think it's Sniper.
We're trying to put out a hit.
Like, what's up? Yeah. Oh shit.
So I will say this: I've done touring in bands, and I've done touring with a purpose. And it is so much better to do it with a purpose. Yeah. At the end of the day, like you're doing something for a paycheck versus something you're actually going to change the world. And it's serving someone else. It's so much more fulfilling.
So what did that entail? You said you were band relations.
Yep. So I was going on tour with bands that supported the cause and what we were doing. And so I'd go out there. It's, again, a lot about the hang. I'd be hanging with these guys and just kind of getting them, like kind of being the face of the nonprofit. I'd be at shows getting people that were at the show educated on what we were doing, trying to get them involved. And then pretty much anybody came in contact. So I'm like, hey, I'm a face of this guy. That's what we're doing. Everyone want to get involved. Let's hang. A lot of hang. Yeah. A lot of hangs. And those tour stories, like those ones were like, man, so fun because you didn't have all the
nonsense.
No, yeah, all the nonsense, all the prima donna, all the stuff that was going on in the bands that we were touring with did not really. It was me and one of my best friends. We were in this van. Sometimes we did van tours, sometimes we did bus tours and whatever. But it was like, let's go travel the U.S. and like in our van, we're like, anything you want to do, the answer is yes. So in that phase of life, I learned the value of yes. Just say yes. Always produces. Always. Every time. Right? You might find yourself in the weirdest position in the world. Like, how the hell did we get here? Like, what are we doing here?
But you gained something from it.
Gained something from it. So the lesson in that phase of life was just say yes. Go all in.
Sweet.
Yep. You don't know what's on the other side of it, but I guarantee you're going to have a story from the backside.
Yeah. Right? And then you relinquish the issue of like having to question down the road.
Yep.
That's the worst.
Yep.
Yeah. Just fucking go for it.
Yep. I think that was the underlying, I'm glad you brought that up. The underlining like driving force of me pursuing music was like, same with football, same with anything else in my life. You have a small window to do things. Mm-hmm. And if you do not do it, what's worse, failing or always wondering what if? Like, what if I would have done that?
Yeah, I do.
Right. Oh,
yes.
You know, the man in the arena, the poem, the man in the arena. It's not the critic that counts, but the man in the arena, the man whose face is marred in blood, etc. Something.
Brene Brown, she
almost had it.
She talks about that a lot.
It's a great one, though. It really is.
Yep.
It's not the critic who counts. It is the man in the arena.
Yep.
So point being, to your point, go out and fail. It's better than not doing anything. And I think the full, now that I'm actually thinking about it, towards the end, I think it's actually like a Teddy Roosevelt speech or something, but towards the end he said, those who try, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but those who try and fail at least have reached for something great and will never find themselves with the timid souls who never tried anything at all.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what, I once had somebody tell me when I moved in here, like, it's not my fault you bit off it more than you could chew. And someone that rubbed me wrong. And I'm like, but at least I'm willing to do that.
Yep. Yep.
Stay comfortable, buddy.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
At least I'm willing to bite off more than I can chew. And I guess what? I ate it. Well, and I'm chewing some more. And I'm going for bigger bites now.
That's a real life comment. But like whenever I first started my channel, like, and I was also just delusionally confident, but I can do this like you're saying. It's like I was just sitting on camera and now I look back, like I was doing videos with my phone held up by center blocks and shit. It was ridiculous. Yep. It's ridiculous. But I was like, whatever. Point being is that like the things that I would think about, and even now sometimes whenever we get crazy comments or whatever, is like, yeah, but you're commenting on it on YouTube and we're actually sitting down, putting our face and our name on it. So
Yep. It's scary. It's scary putting something out there.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's a critic.
Everybody. And the more it grows.
Yep.
But hell yeah.
You know what I heard recently?
I'm here for the ride.
There you are.
And I'll drop this part, but I heard recently, I freaking love this, dude. It was, if you walked on water, somebody would say it's because you can't swim. I love that, dude.
I guess people think I can't swim.
I love that,
I'm just
dude,
kidding.
because that's so
I can't
freaking
walk on
true.
water.
So freaking true. No. But I did want to ask you, going back to your story, you were talking about, so you were doing the band relations, and then you were also talking about doing the van touring. So what was like the chronology there?
Yeah. So depending on the tour, so I was
Doing both? Like,
I was doing both.
Okay.
Yep. So there would be bands that I was essentially contracting with or going out with, and like, hey, I need a drummer or whatever. So I was playing all these different things, and so for about a span of about 5 years, I was pretty much on the road nonstop. And my life was it was awesome. I mean, I'm 40 at this point, and I look back at my 20s. I'm like, I'm not going to go through a midlife crisis because I did it. Like, I have nothing to question about that. Like, I did all the things I cared about, right? Now I'm very happy. My life looks very, very different, and but I don't desire anything else.
Facts, dude.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's important. I think it's so important to live that. And it costs a lot. Now, my career suffered because of it, because I'm like, I got all these friends who are making so much more money. They've got awesome jobs, whatever. Good for you. But life isn't about the money.
Got experience, man.
Yep.
It's about the experience of life, dude. That's the most important part to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, the amount of lessons I learned in my 20s by not going to college surpassed anything I would have learned going to college. And that is what I pass on to my kids. Like, look, I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen people at their worst. I see this is what people do when they're on XYZ drug. This is what I see people doing with like destroying their lives away. This is like all of it. I saw it.
Yeah, you can relate. You know, you can find it relatable. That's the thing. Like, I remember being told in a past relationship, well, it's not my fault you made dumb decisions when you were younger. And I'm like, man, I learned from that shit. Like, I'm going to relate with my kids one day. And I mean, I'm glad I went through all that shit. So, whatever.
I used to look at it as, did you ever read the book? It's an old classic, the Red Badge of Courage.
Nope.
Okay. Essentially, it's a story about a guy who was, I mean, it is a classic back from like I think it was, I mean, I read it in junior high. So if somebody listens and like, dude, you totally botched that.
I'm not gonna.
But I'm
not gonna do it.
The whole premise of, I think it was the not the Revolutionary War, but the Confederates and the
Civil War.
Thank you. So they glamorize the whole idea of going to war, right? And getting hurt, whatever. And if you get hurt and you get shot, whatever, you're going to get a bandage, and that bandage is going to turn red because of the blood, and therefore you've got a red badge of courage.
Nice.
Right? And so I've looked at my life with the idea of like, man, I want the red badge of courage, because if I go through the fire, if I go through all these really, really hard things, then I can do harder things. I can do things that I don't even think I'm capable of doing. Yeah. Your red badge of honor, red badge of courage, means that you can go do things that are tough that most people say no to. And because I've done it so many times, dude, I'm going to do laps around you.
Oh, God, I could talk on this all day.
You and me both.
I'm not going to.
And
we'll come back to it
by
later.
the way, as the 28-year-old who has, we talked about this on a Patreon episode recently, as a 28-year-old who has sacrificed his whole 20s doing exactly what you're talking about, my other thing, like one of the guys that I structure a lot of my stuff around, he talks about this because he was boxing Gary Vaynerchuk. He was boxing line when he was 32 years old. And, guys that he went to school with, he said would pull up in BMWs and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And the punchline is amazing. And I just think about it all the time. And so I'll see you in 10 years.
Yep.
So I hope hope things go as swimmingly as they did for you the first 25.
Yep.
The next 10, because I'm setting myself up.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the experience and all that stuff in that time frame.
Right.
Yep.
So,
dude, so I was living life like in a different way. Anybody who's toured can say, "Yep, I did it." The tour stories might be different, but the idea and the concept of it's the same. The difference with me is I always had 1 foot in performing and 1 foot in serving, and there's benefits to both. It's so fun to play. The other side of it, it's like, man, it's so fun to serve, and like I learned that lesson of that. Like, man, it is so much better to give. It's hard to give. It's hard to have, but as long as you have a purpose for it, there's a reason for it. Like, I am doing something. That might just be the way that I'm designed. Yeah. But I want to help. I want to help. I want to help. Yeah. So there's
another topic I could talk about for a bit. We'll get to some stuff after the podcast because holy shit.
Yeah. So then,
So you found a calling in giving.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I learned that there's a value there, and we are designed to do that. And so, and it's not necessarily financial. Like it could be time, it could be whatever. It's just unto something. So I realized that I need to always have an unto something, which plays into the next phase of life was business building. You can do anything, literally anything, for a given amount of time if it's unto something, right? So you can have the worst job in the world. You can be like, man, I'm grinding. If you're grinding forever, it doesn't work. If you're grinding unto something, if it's unto something, then there's a reason. There's a small window there,
okay.
right? You can push past it, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that I know what it is to grind. I've done it. And I've done it so many times, and it's failed, and it's failed, and it's failed, and it's failed, and it's failed. But within my house, we teach our kids, you can do hard things.
Yeah.
And I push that hard. Like anything is tough, say it. You can do hard. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. You're gonna believe what you're hearing. You're gonna believe what you're gonna say. So there's power in the tongue.
Oh, of course.
Second is you can do anything hard for any given amount of time. So 6 months, 6 years, 1 decade, whatever it is. If there's a time frame on there, like, hey, we have it's onto something, go all in, and then reassess at that. So it might not be the end of the grind, but it will be like a check-in point. So let's go 6 months in, see where we're at, but go hard, right? So I think there's something very I don't want to say poetic, but there's such a win and a gain by not giving up and just believing where you're going to go. So
1 million thousand. That's the vision you were talking about earlier.
Dude, the vision.
And if you don't have it, it's hard to even explain it. But it's just like it's faith. I mean, it's essentially faith. It's like walking without seeing, right?
Yep.
God, man, it's perfectly
Fantastic.
put, man. I mean, that's one thing I have to like remind myself of in this period. You know, I talked about it, raising a family. You know, trying to keep the lights on here and doing all the things and paying all the bills. It's just like, but there's a purpose to it. I'm passionate about it. I love it. I know it's, that as well. Like we're trying to make an impact on others, maybe not necessarily give financially, but make an impact on their minds and their hearts, but just believing in it and going and going and going. And like, there's so much value in that.
Yep.
Because that's what separates you from everybody else. A lot of people are like, oh man, this is a great idea. And they go for it and they're like, oh shit, pump the brakes. Let's just stop now.
Yep.
And it's like, but if you just keep pushing past that fucking point.
The podcast example we've talked about with the.
Oh yeah, like the statistics on podcasting. Like overall, I think like 2 or 3% of podcasts go past 3 episodes.
Yeah, I think it's like 10% go past 1.
10% go past 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And then of that 10%, only
like another 10%.
Another 5% go past 23 episodes.
Yeah, like
it's just crazy because like you've got to see the long-term value in it. You're not going, don't have crazy expectations. Because trust me, I have expectations all the time about shit. And I'm like, fuck yeah, because I'm very optimistic and big vision person, always have been. And I get disappointed over and over again. But guess what? I know how to sit myself down and be like, Joe, you're crazy. But that's why I fucking keep going too.
Yep.
So you get disappointed, but then things start stacking up over time, and you may meet that expectation down the road. It just takes other steps to get there. So,
bro, 100%. And before we started the podcast, I was asking you about Lydia, right? Lydia's your wife.
Yep.
And I was asking you about her, and this plays such a role in this of like, okay, you need to have someone in the back of your ear being like, Joe, you can do this. I have full confidence that you can keep doing. Now you can do it on your own, but having someone that has the loudest voice in your ear, which is forever will be your wife.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. And so I was asking you some questions about that, trying to get an idea of like, what is the situation here? Because what you're building here, when you walk me through, I'm like, all right, this guy's got vision. He's going after certain things, and this takes risk. And if your wife is not backing that, bro, none of this will last. None of it will work. So I found myself very interested in when you were talking. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, he's got a really solid wife because it's not you. You're not the only one going through this. Your wife is, and your kid is, and every decision you're making, bro.
She's got to back it up. I mean, and that's crazy you brought that up. I mean, I shout out her at some point every episode. She's very significant and just an important point to bring up in so many ways. But yeah, I mean, she may not be here doing all the RP shit, but she's here doing all the RP shit, if that makes sense. Like, because I couldn't do it without her. You know what I'm saying? She just helps everything flow. She gives me that confidence, and her voice is the one I always hear when it comes to making decisions and stuff like that, you know, and I think about them too.
Yep.
But yeah, man, she instills all that confidence. It's pretty gnarly. And I think that's important though. And I've talked about it with guests in the past. Man, your partner is such a crucial part of your future.
Oh, dude. Yep.
I mean, in everything you do. And because if you got someone that doesn't believe in you, then I don't know, what's the fucking point?
Yep.
You know?
Isn't it crazy how you can be so self-sufficient and you can drive? And now I can totally see this going into the whole masculinity aspect. And we want to go there, we can go there.
Yeah.
But you can drive. And then as soon as you let someone into your life, your wife, all of this is now contingent on a lot of different variables. And what they can say to it is going to make or break that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen strong men crumble because they chose wrong. So choose right.
Yeah.
Everything is on the line with that.
Never settle with that.
Yep.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
All right. So, and we're going to talk more about this.
Yep.
So from there, you were doing stuff with you were touring with the bands, you were touring for the nonprofit with the purpose, and you learned a lot from that experience there in your 20s, right? Moving forward after, still in San Diego.
Yeah, transitioning kind of maybe out of that.
Yep. So at the end of that, I was about 26, 27, and I was like, man, I need a break from this. So I took a year off. And then I was kind of focusing more on design. I was like, I'm going to build this. I think, my priorities are changing. At that point in my life, I didn't date. I was like, I didn't do the typical things that band guys do. I wasn't hooking up with chicks. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't drinking. Wasn't doing all that stuff. I was just like, I'm here for the fullness of life, and I want to be present to it.
Yeah.
And so, So I felt that my priorities were starting to shift. I didn't want to do this anymore. I knew it was kind of had like my expiration date was coming up. So, it's crazy. I had this moment where I was creating some art for an art show. And it was about 4:00 in the morning. I was trying to get it done because it was the next day. And I was doing this piece called, it was Compromise for Lullabies. Was a name of this song from this local band back in the day. And I was like, man, that's such an awesome line. Like, a compromise for lullabies. Like, what are you compromising for your dreams, essentially? And I was doing it, and I was like kind of doing an homage to that whole title. And I was like, man, at this point, a year off of music. And I was like, man, what am I doing? It's like I'm compromising security and safety of pursuing a full-time job or whatever to give up my dream of music. And I was like, I'm going to do this again. So that morning I woke up, I gave my notice to where I was living in San Diego. And I'm like, I'm going to Nashville. So I packed up my bags, 5 of them that I had. I mean, at this point,
Easy move.
Yeah, dude, I didn't own a bed for like 8 years. Like legit just slept on the floor wherever I was.
How's your back doing?
Yeah, it's doing great. It's doing great now. Chiropractor, I got one for you.
There you go.
So then I moved back I moved to Nashville. Again, didn't know anybody, so I restarted my life again. Now, during that time in San Diego, I moved to Portland. I lived in Portland, Charlotte. I lived in Nashville, Detroit, type of thing. So I was kind of moving all around wherever the opportunity was.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I'm thinking I'll be here for 6 months. I'll find a band and I'll be jetting off somewhere else. I was here for 3 days and I'm really like, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do music anymore. I'm so done with touring. I'm so done with all of this. And so I'm like, dear God, what am I going to do? It took me about 2 years to come down from that and actually process the whole, I've lost my identity. I've lost everything that I've invested in. Oh, dude, it was tough.
That part of you was over.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just speak to that with sports. And also it's not talked about very much, and so nobody really prepares you for that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Man, it was tough. It was a lonely season, but I had a handful of friends that were coming off the road at the same time that were moving to Nashville. So there was a kind of like a community. Like you talk about your community, your guys.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll talk about that another time, but that was awesome. Just having like camaraderie within this. I'm like, hey, I'm coming off, you're coming off. Oh, we all understand each other. And we don't
can
have to say
relate.
anything.
Yeah.
Yep. So at that point, about a year after that, I started dating my wife, and we got married.
How old were you? When was this?
So I was about 20. I've been 20. I'm sorry. Yeah, 28 is when I started dating my wife.
Okay. And
we had met by chance out in San Diego, and then reconnected in Nashville. Dude, I watched that video of you, and you were talking about when you got hit, and I'm paraphrasing, but the EMA guy or EMS guy was like, or EMT, he's like, hey, am I going to die? He's like, well, we're going to make sure, we're going to try our best not to make that happen.
Yeah.
And then you kind of describe this like click moment where like, oh my gosh, my fiance, all these people, like there's the gravity of life comes in.
Yeah. I remember like flashes of like my parents and my niece and stuff like that. I mean, as soon as, I said they did the Life Flight people, and I was just like, holy shit, like life could be over right now.
Dude, what a gift. A lot of people don't get that.
Wild.
right?
Wild as hell.
You get a check-in. Hey, how am I doing? You get a litmus and you get to kind of gauge where you are, right?
Yeah.
Like you're up in front with death. Dude, what's the gift, man? What you do with it, and clearly you did the right thing with that gift, but people don't typically get that.
God, yeah. Man, we'll talk more because you want to speed through your story.
Yeah.
Because I know there's some things you want to touch on.
Yep.
He's probably going to be asking questions.
I am. I'm coming for you.
All right, sweet. I'm ready for it. Hey, well, let's plug away. I know your wife. You met your wife.
Met my wife. Yeah, we actually met by chance. It's kind of a crazy scenario. She flew out there for a wedding, and this guy that I knew from my church was having people over, and I was in between tours, right? I was home for like 3 days, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm having some people over," and so I'm like, "Cool, well I'll hang out." So at that point in my life, I'm meeting hundreds of people a day. Like faces, names don't mean anything to me. I'm like, "Hey, you're cool. That's cool. Hang."
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we were just talking. We're like, "Oh, this chick is awesome. Like she's a rad girl." And I remember just thinking, God, I want to marry a girl like this. Like this is a girl I would want to, whatever. And then she leaves. She goes back to Chicago. I go back on tour for the next 3 years. And the day before I'm leaving, she flies in to San Diego on a blind date with a Navy SEAL. Now this guy, the person that's throwing my going away party happens to be one of her best friends from college, a totally different person.
This is 3 years later?
3 years later.
So where you're leaving to go where?
Nashville.
Okay,
I'm moving
gotcha.
the next day to move to Nashville. And so my friends.
Sorry, I'm like so anal about the chronology.
You're good.
So I'm imagining she's on this date, and you go up behind the guy and you choke
And you
him
just,
out, and
you
you're
just
like,
ended it right there. And that
You
was
sure he's
Jocko.
good? You throw him
That was
down?
Jocko Willink that you walked up behind. It was
Yeah.
David Goggins.
she was like, "You won my heart. You're a badass."
Respect, brother.
So she flies into San Diego and she's like, "Hey, let's go randomly surprise my friend. She doesn't know I'm coming in." She shows up at that her door, who's throwing me to that party, and she walks in. I'm like, "Dude, I think I've met this girl before, but I don't know where." And so at one point I reach out to her. I'm like, "Hey, I think we've met." She's like, "I've never seen you before in my life." Right?
Ow.
But she's like, "I'm moving to Nashville at the end of the summer." And I was like, "Well, let me get your number. And by the time I get there, hopefully I've made friends, you have community and whatever." So anyway, long story short, leaving the next day, I'm driving through Salt Lake City and it hits me like a ton of bricks. That's that girl from that party like 3 years ago. And so I text her. I'm like, "Hey, we did meet. I'm not crazy." And so anyway, when she got to Nashville, I was in a place where I wasn't looking at a date, and about a year later, we started dating, and then it worked out.
The rest is history.
Yep.
Now you're married and
Well,
you have children.
you asked Joe, so let's hear it from you.
What's that?
The rest was history, but why was she the one? Why was she the one that just locked it in
good
for
one.
you?
Yeah. Two things. Two things really stood out to me very, very quickly. One was she was a ton of fun. I mean, this girl saw the marrow of life, for lack of better words. I mean, she was in, and everything was just joyful. Like everything was like just a fun adventure to be a part of. And I was like, I want to be a part of that adventure. That sounds fun. And she's smoking hot. I was like, way out of my league. Like I can't land this.
But I'm going for
I'm
it.
gonna go for it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is, this is me, the future thinking of me. I saw her with kids. She was like nannying, and which is the moment I knew I was going to marry her. She was actually with some kids, and I was like, that woman is going to make a fantastic mother to my kids. And
That's some storybook shit, right?
So did you tell her that?
later,
Hey,
he said much.
you would be a
much
good
later.
mother to my
He
children.
said much later. I told her that. Yes, Joe.
yeah, and she is. I mean, the woman is like Mary Poppins. Like the things that she thinks of in parenting is like, wow. My kids, I have 2 daughters, and they won the lottery, hands down. With
Yeah,
her.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Isn't it crazy whenever
Fucking
it's
right,
like
dude. Beautiful.
the Mary Poppins plus you had like the physical attraction, like Joe talks about never settling all the time.
Yep.
And a lot of people get one or the other. They want one or the other, or they settle for one or the other, and it's possible.
beauty's fleeting, right? Like we're all gonna get wrinkles. So you put all your coins and all your cash in on beauty, you're gonna be left with so much.
See, that's what Lydia said. You're handsome. Now face tattoos. And I'm like, yeah, but when I'm like 50 something, I'll be ugly, and then I'll get face tattoos.
Dude, that's a compromise. That works.
She's like, I don't know if it works like that, but whatever. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
I know we're speeding through this, but I think this would be a good opportunity to hype him up because I love that thing that you always say whenever guys say that they outkick their coverage. It's the one that Michael said. That's kind of what he said when he's out of my league, right? Usually I looked over at it, I thought maybe he was going to pounce on that.
Yeah, so my buddy said he
usually
outkicked his coverage, and I was like, you didn't though, because you were made for that woman. Mm-hmm. Like maybe she could, neither one of y'all outkicked your coverage. Y'all were just for each other. It's just funny to like analyze. People are like, man, she's better than me or way too this for me. And it's like, actually, y'all are together and like, this is meant to be.
Yep.
That wasn't outkicking shit for coverage.
And
that just works together beautifully. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Outkicking the coverage has a almost implied element of like luck to it. And like when we were talking about that day, he said, which I love this, is luck runs out at some point.
Yep.
And if you think you're lucky, it's going to run out. Mm-hmm. So,
yep.
And I see guys that you post with their women. They're like, I'm so lucky she puts up with me. And I was like, well, it's a problem if they're just putting up with you.
Yeah, if that's true.
And because if you're lucky, luck runs out, and they'll just have to put up with some other guy. You know what I'm saying? So, no, be the man you're supposed to be. You're good.
Yep.
Okay, sorry again.
Sorry, you got me all.
So you're good. Met her,
so you're done
it's
there,
always
right?
good whenever you say, and the rest was history, right? That's why I wanted to ask another question about. That's always a good sign.
Yep.
But I want to peel that back a little bit. So you guys got married. You had your 2 daughters.
2 kids. Yep. Being a father. So, backstory. When I was 19, I started reading books on how to parent sons. I was legit convinced, I'm gonna have sons and I'm gonna raise these guys to be absolute badasses, right? I'm gonna do this amazing. And so I started doing the backlog early. I have 2 girls, right? When we found out what we had, I was like, oh, like I can't tell you the weight of the ton of bricks that hit the ground when I found out that I was a girl. I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? Like I know nothing to do with girls. I know everything to do with boys, nothing to do with girls. And I realized like that whole phase was more or less for me than it was to be a parent. So I was learning and dealing with things that I needed to get healed of or like address. And so that was more for me. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have girls. I am 100% designed to be a girl dad.
Same.
I love it.
I love it. There's nothing like it. I wanted a little girl.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
And if I have a boy,
Like the
I'll
only
be
guy
stoked.
I've ever heard that said that was like, yeah, dude, straight up, I wanted a girl.
Yeah. And like I got a little girl, and I was just like, fuck yeah, dude. I don't know, something about it.
Yep.
I'm a little angel,
Yep.
Yeah. It's such a powerful feeling, and like, dude, it's so crazy, like the little connection. Like, Lydia, like I'll get home, and she'll just like see me, and she goes. And she wiggles, and Lydia's like, she hasn't done that all day. She sees feeling. But she loves it too. Yep. Like she's also extremely attracted to that connection between us too. So I think, I don't know, it's just powerful being a girl dad. Is just nothing like it. Yep. But it's also a lot of fucking pressure.
Oh, dude. Okay. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you have a boy or a girl. Dude, the role that a guy has in his household is unbelievably difficult to achieve. Like there is so much there, right?
Please go off.
I feel the pressure. I feel the pressure every single day, and it's tough. And I know that I don't even know how to start with this, but like what you bring into that and how it's outflowing. So like you're a business owner, right? Mm-hmm. So you can probably, to some degree, you may be able to agree on this, but I'll bring all the things that I'm caring about my business home to my kids, and it has nothing to do with them, and they're the ones who get the brunt of it, or my wife. It's like, dude, what are you investing in? What is this for? And so I feel like it's not all in me, but there's a great deal of who my kids become, how I'm speaking identity into them, who I tell them they are, the voice that I carry with my kids, who they choose to be with, the choices they make in life. It all is now. Like this is the foundation. It's now.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, did a writing about this recently, and it's just like about looking in the mirror and reflecting, and I talked about kids aren't going to listen to what you tell them to do. I've never been good at people. When people tell me to do things, I pretty much do the opposite. That's my nature as a kid and even as an adult. And most kids are that way as well. They're going to replicate your actions.
Yep.
So how do you speak to them? How are you talking to your wife? What are you constantly on your phone? Just even little shit like that we don't notice. Are you just having beers every single night? Like those kinds of things, you need to be aware of that, because I'm telling you, that plays a massive effect in who they become down the road.
Yep.
And how I treat Lydia is a big, big piece of like the man they choose one day, because you get a lot of guys that are like, it doesn't matter, or no man's ever going to be good enough for my daughter. But I can confidently say, or at least hope, like I'm going to treat them in such a way that like when she does choose a guy, as obviously as an adult, that I'll be like, oh, I trust her decisions, you know, like he's good enough, because like she, you know, you got to have that. You got to trust them. I don't know. I'll look at it totally differently because I'm so intentional about my action towards my family. And it's just those little things, man, you analyze.
Can I ask you a question? So you and I, we know each other for a total of 2 hours, right? And I've heard you talk through your story. The conversation that we've been having. You're very intentional with your words. You're very aware of what you're feeling and what you're trying to say. And you're an open well of what's going on in here. Is that something? You're welcome. Hey, it's rare. I find it very rare with men, especially guys that are like jacked and like, dude, so many of those dudes are like just they're burying it, right? Like they're whatever. I'm massive. You're gonna be threatened by me, or you're gonna be scared of me. So therefore, I don't have to actually show up.
Yeah,
you're both in. So my question with that is that something you learned how to do, or is that something you went to therapy? You've worked through all that. What's your story as far as you learning you?
Man, interesting. So, I mean, obviously, I was raised, you know, I give a lot of credit to my mother. She was very just loving growing up, but she went through hell. Her childhood was hell, you know, and so, you know, my grandparents weren't very much like that. And, but she was the youngest of 7 siblings. She saw all this just chaos unfold. She wanted nothing to do with that. So when she was gifted to have a family, you know, she did everything opposite of, you know, her upbringing. So she raised us with a lot of love. And I think that has a massive part of it. Cause my mom just pours her heart open. She's very loving and kind. And, I think I've taken a lot of that from her. And my dad's definitely been a lot more stern. I mean, he's, you know, typical, but not as much letting his emotions out and stuff. But I think it's just kind of been a part of who I am. You know, I'm like, I'm able to I'm very analytical. And I see a lot of guys that maybe look a certain way or aesthetic, or they're supposed to be a man, right? So a man's supposed to be this tough guy and not let it out. It's too like, it's not masculine to let your emotions flow and talk about your feelings. And it's like, well, if that's all you're doing, yeah, that's not masculine. But you can be masculine through your actions and the things that you do and you put out into this world. And you can still let your emotions, if you're just one or the other, so if you're just a tough guy all the time,
yep,
that looks weak. If you're just an emotional wreck all the time, that looks weak. When you bring both together, and that's how you have an impact, and that's how you really move people. Bro. And that's what, to me, I truly believe is what masculinity is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think, and just a lot of experience, I think just working through things and being willing to suffer through, you know, relationships and call off engagements and, you know, stuff like that, but always staying true to myself and allowed my heart to guide me rather than what everybody else thought, you know, because I noticed, hey, you should do this or you should do that, or this is a smart idea. When I kind of listened to other people, that's when shit didn't go well. But if I just let my heart guide me into things, that's when things always pan out. I learn the most. So I think just letting that guide me, and I don't know, because of that, and because of the experiences, I've been able to just like let it all out, be fully authentic, and not give a shit. And the wreck was a big thing too, because I've got a perspective on life that I don't think a lot of people will attain. Like when you're facing that veil, when you're at the veil of death, you know, and then you had this accident and you look at like the 30 freaking injuries you had, and you're like, holy shit, I should be dead. I'm here for a reason.
Yep.
Why the hell else would I live life anything other than all out and authentically?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so how can I relate that to other people?
Yep.
But we don't need to put on a front, and that's a problem. Did that make sense?
Dude, I'm tracking.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So in that, do you feel yourself alone in it? Or do you feel like, that's a pointed question. I'm just going to leave it at that. Do you feel yourself alone in most conversations because of the level you're able to go to?
In a lot of conversations, yes. Because I don't do well with blanket, just like the normal everyday stuff. Like, oh, watch the game and stuff like I don't, you know, he knows me. I don't watch sports at all. I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Like just, oh, the sun's bright today. Those little, I find that I have to go deep with people always.
Yep.
And that's just part of who I am. And so, but a lot of people aren't willing to break past those little barriers. And so it kind of just stops there. And you do kind of feel alone or like outcasts in a way.
Yep.
And it's nothing against them. But then when you are willing to just like literally cut your fucking arm open and let it bleed out, regardless of what people think, you realize like, man, there's a very small percentage of people willing to truly do that and be honest and authentic about it. And yeah, it's a weird place to be, but I'm very fortunate to have surrounded myself with quite a few people that share that.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
not a ton of people, but yeah, so I got people around me that are willing to do the same. So that's pretty cool. So I'm not quite alone, but yeah, it's definitely a different world. So
isn't it crazy? The older you get, the smaller your circle comes. You're like, these are my people, these are my people, these are my people. That's it. Like, obviously I'm saying that not as an exclusive, like, oh, I've got my people and they're never going to go anywhere else. But the people who can go there with you, like as you grow, you're like, man, that gets smaller and smaller and smaller the older you get. And if you're especially aligned with where you're going to go. So you're a dad, you're a business owner, you're a husband, you're, whatever. It's like, hey, I'm going towards this. My true north is going this way. And I'm going to give my heart, my soul to everything around me. And if you're not going with me, then my circle just got smaller.
yeah, and you're able to recognize those that aren't going in that same direction, even if they say they want to. Lydia and I were talking about it, and had people in our life like, oh, y'all don't talk as much anymore, and like I don't get to spend much time with you. Like I'm out of the loop, and it's like, no, she works full time.
Yep.
I work all the fucking time. We got a child. We got this amount of time per day together. We want to spend that with each other, not anybody else.
Yep.
Like you just got to understand it.
Yep.
Like people, it's crazy because one, people aren't willing to put themselves in your shoes or try to, because I always try to step aside and be like, let me put myself in the passenger seat of this person's vehicle and just analyze and like see what their life is like and just be very understanding about it. But because people had these expectations, they suddenly start to drift off.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But then you realize it's actually a really good thing because it just narrows that focus down.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, it's the same for you.
Oh, dude, for sure. In fact, I didn't realize that until the day of my wedding. My father-in-law comes up to me and I don't even know he remembers saying this, but it definitely stuck with me. I had all my groomsmen up. Now my guys that stood at my wedding are stellar guys, right? They're rough around the edges, some of them, but they're great. Like the hearts are so there.
Yeah.
And he was like, just not pointing at them, but just in general. He's like, essentially the idea of you are who you surround yourself with, right?
Yeah.
The closest, your closest 5 people, that's who you become type of thing. And I couldn't tell you exactly how he said it, but that was kind of the idea around it. Mm-hmm. And as I've made changes in my life and the things I've pursued and what I'm going after, what my true north ends up becoming, the more I realize, I'm like, if you're not with me, then I'm not going on this journey with you, right? I don't have time for it. I've got such a small window to give outside of my family and my work. So if I'm going to have influence on it in my life, I need it to be in the same true north that I'm going.
Yeah.
That's tough because some of those people are my best friends. Some of those people I've known for my entire life. And it's hard. It's like I'm not completely walking away from our friendship, but if we're not going the same direction, I'm not going to give you the important aspect of my time.
Yeah, I mean, because you end up being like the tugboat, not the lighthouse, right? We talked about that quote a lot. Be a lighthouse, not a tugboat.
Yep.
And I found over the years, like, hey, I'm trying to like just tug some people along. And then you get to this realization that like, man, they're complaining about the same thing they were 2 years ago.
Yep.
And it's like, when are you gonna like? I've had this realization of myself, and I'm going forward. When are you actually going to do that? Had that moment where you look in the mirror and be like, fuck, it's me, and make that change. And like, I can only do so much, but I can't allow you to hold me back anymore. And a lot of people don't understand that, but like at the end of the day, this is your life. This is your experience.
Yep.
And you can't allow other people to trash that.
Totally.
So, and that's why I'm willing to cut off family members and stuff that I don't connect with. And people are like, oh, it's blood. And I'm like, man, my brothers in the Hari,
Yeah.
that's my blood. Like, you know what I'm saying? Love is thicker than blood. Like we had that same vision. If you don't, you may be blood, but I love you.
Yep.
But I don't have to waste my time. And I know some people may think that's off, but like, I don't know. I choose my family.
Yep.
You know, if I didn't have such a good relationship with my parents, if they judged me for who I was and what I believe in, I'd be like, I appreciate y'all for all you've done, but I'm going to have to lose contact with y'all. Fortunately, they're a couple of my best friends, but that's just how it is. Because why, I don't know, why allow other people to anchor down your life in any way? Because you get this one opportunity, this one small opportunity to maximize it. And I'm not going to, I'd rather not sit still and just get comfortable. Like, I'm going to maximize the fuck out of it. And I talk about this a lot. When I get down to the end of the road, and it is my time, and say I lived the older age, I don't know, 80 something or whatever, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn, I'm going to look back on my life, and like, I'll talk about Lord of the Rings a lot. And I try to think of like life as a book or a film. And if I could put my film on of my life, I want it to be like a Lord of the Rings myth, epic. You know what I'm saying? I don't want it to be some boring shit that I'm falling asleep in the first 10 minutes.
Yep.
And that's what you got to think about. But the people you have in your life can greatly affect which path that is.
Yeah.
So, if you allow them to.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to make tough decisions.
What's easy is being at the top of your friends, right? The one who's like, oh, I'll help you. I'll help you fix this. I'll help you do this. What's hard is finding people that they're helping you. That is so tough to be in the place. There's power there.
Yeah.
If you're surrounding yourself around people that you can actually, have influence on versus someone that can actually help you, and that's tough for me.
And then you realize that because maybe you've helped X amount of people, right, and they burned you so bad.
Oh yeah.
When someone else wants to help you, it's like, I don't really. They're like, Joe, like, let me help you.
Yep.
I don't know, because I feel like you're going to expect this of me. So it's hard to allow people to help you as well.
Yep.
And you got to learn through that too. That's a little learning journey, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely a difficult thing to find, but you do over time.
Yep.
It just happens organically.
You'll find your tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
You got about 6.5 minutes.
Oh shit. What else do you want to pinpoint on? I mean, we got your story, right? And God, see, Leigh's the kind of guy that comes on the podcast and like we both just come and just talk about shit. And he has a list of stuff he probably wants to, because I can see just ever since the beginning, he's just had things just popping up in his head. And I hate when it gets to this.
Narrow. In a way, it's good though, because a lot, like, you get to the end, you're like, well, do it again.
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely gonna do it again.
Cool.
I'm trying to think what else I got for you. If anything you got for me, let me know.
And also, if you have like any loose ends with your story that you'd like to tie, anywhere you want to jump to real quick, as far as like,
Nope.
again, the chronology, I guess.
No, I think the only thing that I would add is the current season. The current season is, so as I was talking to you, my story, I'm like, this is the season, this is what I learned. This is the season, this is what I learned. So you have the opportunity to look at the seasons, and I look at my life in seasons. That could be 1 year, it could be 10 years, or whatever. And it could be multiple seasons going at one time. But when we're talking earlier about these moments in life where your things shift, when I got married, that when I saw my wife walking down the aisle, something shift. When I held my first daughter for the first time, something shift. And there's a lot of things that go down there. But one of the things that shifted with me was in the aspect of vocation, providing a whole 9 yards. Like, my story is I want to build. I'm designed to own my thing. I'm designed to drive my own ship.
Yep.
I'm very aware of that. I've tried to fit in working for other companies and whatnot. Just isn't my thing.
Yeah.
I want skin in the game, but it comes at a high cost. Like, you are giving up a lot. I work more. In fact, I could have probably worked at McDonald's and made more money by just working, by flipping burgers, by the amount of hours that I've put in. The amount of businesses I've started, the amount of ventures I tried to go down. And like, at the end of the day, I keep asking myself my question of, what do I want my kids to remember about their childhood with me? And that's really tough, because I want to provide, I want to build so that I can have X, Y, Z down the road. But I also want them to see me working very hard, that you can build, and it actually is not easy.
Yeah.
Right? Look at me. I'm doing hard things and I'm showing you. I'm not just telling you. I'm not making you say it. I want you to see it as I'm working in the house. You're seeing me. I'm just grinding. I'm grinding at night. I'm grinding in the morning, grinding all the day, right? And it's to provide for my family. My why is my family. I want to give us XY type of life.
Yeah.
Now, I know enough very, very successful entrepreneurs that make tons and tons of money, and they're never fulfilled. The money is not the goal.
What are they doing it for?
Exactly. Bro, it's intoxicating to think about, like, dude, what you're building here, dude, you've got a solid foundation. I don't know the full inner workings of your business, but I can tell that you're doing some really cool things and people believe in it.
Thanks.
At the end of the day, it's like you could be making, $700,000 a year. You're like, dude, we're crushing it. But if that is the ultimate goal, was to make $700,000, it's never going to be enough. You're going to be like, oh, next year I want to make, 1.4 million, but I want to double it. Dude, all these guys that I see that are chasing the money, they're wasting the time, the precious time they have with their family. Their kids are young. You don't get it back. Jordan Peterson, do you follow him at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, he talks
Love
about
him to
this.
death, dude. 12 Rules for Life is a fucking masterpiece.
You've got 5 years. You've got 5 years with your
Oh,
kid.
yes, when he does the arithmetic with your parents, too. The one with your parents is when he's like, you'll only see your parents, like, I mean, it depends on your situation, but, like,
Yeah.
the people that don't live near their parents, he does the arithmetic of, like, how many times you're going to see them based on holidays and stuff, right? And he's like, how old are you, 50? How old are they? And he's like, so if you actually do the math, and I've heard him say before, people hate to do the math. I've heard him say that before. Yeah. And he's like, if you actually do the math, it's like 5 to 10 more times that you'll see your parents in your life, that you will see them 5 to 10 more times. So what are you going to do at that time?
Yep. My responsibility is my children in my household. Now, my parents, different story. I've already I lost my mom last year. And so I can speak to this all day long. When I look at my kids are my responsibility. And the foundation of who they become, there's so much emphasis about the first 5 years. Now, I'm in the phase I'm in is grinding. I'm building. And it requires a lot. You're doing the same. You're doing the same thing.
Same
dude.
phase. Yeah.
And like, my gosh, I've been doing this for a long time and I don't want to miss it. So what's the balance? How do you do it? How do you be a good businessman and like build what you want to do so that your family can reap the benefits and the profits from it? And how do you show up as a dad and be like, hey, I'm gonna be the best dad I am right now, because right now your biggest desire is for me to chase you around the house and tickle you. Like, that is all you want me to do.
Yeah.
Now, I just came out of a room doing a deal with somebody that could like make or break their business, right? Like, and I'm trying to problem solve. And then I come out and your life is so simple. You just want me to tickle you. You want me to pay attention to you. And at one time, and it's not far off for you too, they will not care about that. They won't want me, Dad, you buy Tickle Monster? Like, they won't ask for that anymore.
Yeah.
And when that day ends, if I did not take care of this season I'm in to the fullest extent, I will have such great regret with not being that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that just like eats at me, bro.
Dude, I'm telling you, it takes, all I have to do is just think of them too really hard, and I start getting emotional. I'll sit here and I'll just think about my girls. And I'm like, dude, I could go in tears just out of nowhere. And they have such an impact on me. And it's like I was talking about earlier, I've won. I've got them. That's like that was my biggest dream in life, is to have my own family. Like, how cool is that? And yeah, I want to grow this brand and make an impact, but ultimately it all comes back to them.
Yep.
That's why I said, if it burned down, I'm good, but I'm doing it for them. But finding that balance and having that self-awareness, I didn't realize how hard I've been fucking going. And I get a lot of time with my daughter. Like I said, they're close. She works from home. There's days that they're here all day. And I went on vacation. I wrote about this too. I tend to like put out some really good writings every once in a while. And it's just like stuff. It's all just stuff that comes in my heart. I'm not trying to like be motivational or anything. I'm just like, I'm just going to put my heart on paper.
Yeah.
And like I have, I love doing that. And so anyways, and I got back, and look, the first couple of days I was like, I got to get to the gym, and I got hurt a couple of times. Like, I don't just get hurt at the gym. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, maybe, how about I just don't go to the gym the rest of the week? Why don't I just not stress about the gym? Like, it's something I love, but it's something I always got to do. Why don't I just step back from that? I'm just going to eat the fucking donuts. I'm going to not worry about anything else while I'm here. Yeah, I'll do a couple of posts and stuff like that for the brand. I have to stay on top of it because I do it all, but so I have to like stay proactive. But let's just not stress about the shit. And then I finally disconnected and reset, and I got really connected with my family and my daughter and everything. And I was just like, dude, and by the end of the vacation, like and I'm not a beach person. Usually by the end of the week at the beach, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get home. And I was like, fuck, dude, I don't want this to be over.
Yep.
And I realized how like, yeah, I'm present, but I'm not. Here I'm not. And that's something you really got to step back and realize is like, man, I can be around all the time, but I need to like press this reset button, and my mind needs to be here. My heart needs to be here. And then ever since then, dude, like I'm telling you, it's been a world of difference. Like when I do get the opportunity to be with my daughter, like usually I'd be stressing. Like the other day, Lydia wasn't feeling well. Ozzy has a cold. And it's like I told you. So I brought Ozzy over here, and I was like, I'll get some work done with her here. No, she just want to be held the whole time. So for 5 hours, you know, I'm changing her diaper on here. She peed all over me. Then she spit up.
Yeah.
And I just lift her head up, and she just smiles at me. And I'm like, I don't even fucking care. Like, I love you so much, dude.
Yep.
But like, I can work. I don't care if like afterwards, if I got to stay till midnight, I'll do that.
Yep.
But like that time was so much fun with her, and I loved every bit of it, dude. And I think it's really being able to soak that in and realize it, because you can get caught with the grind so much that all passes by. And then you're past the point of like getting peed on. Well, as ridiculous as it sounds, like you're going to miss that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, and I know I will.
Gosh.
Man, I can so empathize with that, because, you know, we were talking about in your 20s. Like, I'm not going to go through a midlife crisis. I did it. I did the things that I wanted to do. What I'm terrified the most of is missing the season that we're in. Where like you're getting peed on, you're getting like thrown up on. You're like, dude, if you don't have kids and it's not your kid, it's the worst thing in the world, right? If it's your kid, you're like, dude, you get all day long, right? Yeah. But there's a difference between having quality time with them and being present to them versus just being there.
Yeah.
That is the hardest switch for me, is to, and you and I both, we're very much, we're businessmen and we're also family men. And as much as I love my family, it is very, very tough at times to like dial in and be like, no, be present. Don't just be there. Be here for the moment. Oh, it's my biggest fear is that I miss out.
That mental exhaustion, man. And that too, and I don't know, you can relate. You talked about those changes in your life. I mean, one, like the wreck was a huge shift for me, obviously. But then, you know, things with Lydia, that's been the massive shift, because I'm like, man, okay, I'm spending the rest of my life with this person.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to raise a family with this person. That was that massive shift. And then hold my daughter, and I've talked about it before, just like that first time having her in my arms and just bawling my eyes out and be like,
powerful,
man,
right?
what is like, I thought I was comfortable with death, but now I want to be here forever for you. Like, you know, I've talked about it multiple times. Like, can I at least just be alive as long as you're here, you know, because you just want to protect them and all these things, man. And it's just crazy. And there's nothing like it, and I want to dive into these things more, man. I know I'm
going to play the bad guy. I'm sorry. But you got to ask him the question, though.
So I think you already kind of said it, because you talked about being here for this season. But if you want to elaborate more, what is your relentless pursuit?
It's a great question. Man, you know, I the pause is I'm having a hard time boiling it down to one. And, you know, I think you got to be crystal clear on your true north. And for me, it's like, what are you doing it for? That doesn't matter. It's like, hey, what are you coming here for? You and I, why are we coming here today? Why am I going to my wife? Why am I going, like, whatever? Why am I spending so much time working? And it's like, if you can't figure out what your why is across the board, like what it's all for, you're missing out. So my relentless, like when you say relentless pursuit, mine comes down to what is my why? What is my main motivator? And I would say, dude, I want to be the best husband I possibly can be. I want to be the father that is always there for my kids. I want to show up, and that's a bigger explanation, but I'm going to leave it there. And then when it comes to my community, thus my friends, I want to be the guy that can always be counted on. Like Leigh, he's got my back no matter what. Yeah. So I would say my relentless pursuit is my character.
Yeah, the one word. I love it.
He said, it's like, I want to boil it down to one word. And then he talked himself right through it.
Character.
I love that.
You know what? And there's a saying, there's something I always think of, and I've talked about it like with sponsoring people or whatever, and it was like, oh, I don't give a fuck about your following.
Even like the guests, we were talking about the guests earlier.
I don't care if you have 2 million followers or you have 200 followers. The man with more character is who I want a part of this team. Like, I don't care much of a following you have if you have shit character, and that's always going to trump.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm huge on that, man. Character overall, and when you fall into situations in life and say you get banned or whatever, your character is going to to speak for you.
That's a fact.
Your character can back
fact.
you up more than you realize. So, great answer, very important. And man, Leigh,
I was just gonna say real quick. I think it's always important to point this out, especially because you in particular are very heads down with that kind of stuff. And pretty much every time that it comes up, I bring it up. But I do think we talk off camera a lot about how we could, similar to the famous type guests, but we've all seen those podcasts and those clips of OnlyFans models and shit like that. It's like, you don't think that that's something that anybody could do. It's like, what I think is really cool is that like we get to, it's obvious before you even answer the question that you were going to give an answer like that, but just because of what you said today, but it's so common, like, that we have these intense, awesome, deep conversations that need to be had and aren't had. And then, he'll ask a question like that, and the answer is the best husband I could be, the best father I could be, character, the best mother I could. It's like, it's almost, again, or not again, but it's almost like we couldn't even do it on purpose. You know what I mean? It's almost like even with the metal stuff, like that you happen to play metal music, it's like that's what he listens to all the time. It's just weird shit like that. But that one that comes up all the time is like, dude, how fucking cool is that? Like, we're getting to the, Dan Bilzerian, right? It's like, yeah, we get a lot of views on Dan Bilzerian of absolute garbage nonsense going into people's brains and souls.
Trash.
Versus we get to the end of this and it's like, so by the way, what do you just want to sum it up? Character. It's like, well, fuck, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's awesome,
Yeah,
dude.
I could
That's
go
awesome.
find like our local OnlyFans chick and be like, hey, what? That's the clip. What was your biggest tip?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, I got paid this much. I'm like, that's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
But the thing is that draws in a lot of people.
But we don't even do that. It's like we talk
Who
about
cares?
with Brandon, like with Brandon Curry. It's like he's like we were talking about earlier, being this worldwide known bodybuilder. We didn't fucking talk about bodybuilding one time.
Yeah.
And we don't do that with anybody.
It's cool. It's a lot of fun,
So,
man. This is a blast. Leigh, you've been an amazing guest. I knew nothing of Leigh besides Gage suggested him, and I trusted it. And I'm so stoked you're here because I could see this being a long-term friendship. And you're definitely coming back for the podcast because I feel like we could it's not even going to be a story. It's just going to be a lot of topics. And we're gonna go crazy with it. I mean, we're talking about some sketchy shit.
Let's do it.
I mean,
I'm
some
down.
real sketchy
Yeah,
shit.
let's get sketchy.
All right.
So, Leigh, thank you for being here, bro.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
an
a
honor.
pleasure, man. And I'm looking forward to next time. Anything you want to say on the way out?
I got nothing.
Hell yeah, man.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
then.
Thanks, Logan. Take care. Always goes by too fast.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.